Well, we're back at it, and it's not for lack of trying. I have been working on watches, just not been making videos. I've got about 15 projects on the desk, and about half of them started as videos, but they're waiting on parts or whatever. This watch here is a Sovereign diver from the 1960s. Not running very well, but it is running. I believe Sovereign is Benris. I'm not 100% sure on that, but it has like a Seiko based movement in it, so that's pretty cool. It's got the shock protection. I'll show you what that is here later on in this video. So as we come to a close here on this time grapher reading, you'll see that the amplitude is 215 and we're running at about a minute a day fast, and there is something going on with the escapement. That little trail below is telling me there's an issue. 2.8 milliseconds beat error, that's way off. Alright, let's get into this thing and see what we find. First thing we're going to look at is this crazy bezel, and there's no way to get this case back off. It's solid, so it's open through the front, so we're going to have to get this bezel off to get this crystal out. Now I do have a bezel removing tool. Sometimes it's easier just to use these little pry tools when you can't find those. And finding it's funny because it's up there on that shelf above my left shoulder, right in my view. Now, this bezel is made of plastic, so I like to be careful anyway, and sometimes precision of hand pry tool is better. Here we're going to use this claw tool to pull this crystal out, and once we get the crystal off, we'll be able to remove the movement. And this thing has what they call a split stem. So a split stem has a male and female end, and they basically push together. I like to not pull those out. I like to separate them, kind of like how in my Benris video it's got the line on there. Sometimes it's very difficult to do it that way. And I believe on this one I ended up just pulling it out. Okay, so we're going to put a dial protector on here to protect this perfect condition dial, basically. And you'll see here in a second, I thought I damaged it even though I had this dial protector. These hands were on there pretty good, and really a lot of the stuff in this watch was very, very tight. I'm thinking that if this isn't the first time this watch has been serviced, it's the first few times this watch has ever been serviced. And it's in very, very good condition. Are any of you guys out there working on a cool project? How about a skin diver like this? I've worked on several here recently, and I've really enjoyed working on these, although they're not as waterproof as you think a diver should be. Here, as I get this dial protector off there, you'll see that little piece of lint or whatever where I thought maybe I damaged it, but no, it came right off. I don't hold these vintage divers, or any vintage watch for that matter, to their water resistance. Basically, they all just lied. And this one says over 600 feet. I really wouldn't take this into a pool. I didn't put it through my water tester, pressure tester, but that's just because I only really do that with more modern pieces. This would be good washing your hands or like out in the rain, but I wouldn't swim in it for sure. Okay, here we go. Getting this beautiful example of a dial off of this watch into its protector, we will get a view at this Seiko based movement. Now, I don't know. Only reason I know that is just from researching it a little bit, and honestly, there's not a lot of information on this at all. If any of you guys have any information, please leave it in the comment section. I'd love to learn about it. Let's get this in the movement and start tearing it down. So I got this pretty cool tool since I've been away. This is a Canon pinion remover. It's honestly one of my favorite tools here. I love this thing. It makes pulling these Canon pinions off really, really easy. And I use it every single time I work on one of these watches. I learned something while editing this video. This is not Diashock. This is called DuoFix, and I was wrong. Diashock is the balance protection system that Seiko uses. This DuoFix is actually, I guess, Swiss made. I thought that this was the Seiko UT29. Apparently that's the imported version. This is specifically a Qualico 11U4B8. Don't quote me, it's off the top of my head. So because this is a split stem movement, I have to let the movement power out like this. Normally you would want to hold the crown as you're holding the click over and then let the power out through the crown. That's a lot more controlled. It can slip that way. Now here, as I start to disassemble the movement, you'll notice that some of these are very, very tight. I had to use two hands to get this screw without slipping, and that's common in this. Through this whole movement, all these screws feel like factory settings, really, or they haven't been out of there in like 60 years, which would make sense. You know, this watch is from the 60s, so it's probably been about 60 years since somebody's been in here if nobody's serviced it. Alright, here we go. There are some unique designs in this watch. This click spring and click is unique to this. I've never seen that before. It kind of just rides under there. And then the crown wheel here doesn't have its own spacer. You can see me trying to grab this. That is built into the bridge. There is no spacer there. Good or bad, I'm not 100% sure, but it does seem to work fine on this watch. Now, there are some more unique designs on the dial side of this, specifically with the setting lever design and keyless works area. One thing I've noticed while editing this is recently I told you that this was an 11U4B8 and I didn't know if that was actually what it was. It's funny because it's written right there on the train bridge. While I've been away from YouTube, I've not really been away from watchmaking. I have continued to expand and learn and work on projects. My room has grown a lot, my project base has grown a lot, and I've really spent a lot of time working on them and developing my skill set, new oil types and whatever. I noticed going back into this that I I struggle to service as well while I'm recording. And this is not only because of the cameras in the way, and it has to do with the specific angles that for you to be able to see what I'm doing, I can't see what I'm doing as well. And maybe better equipment could help with that. But for now, this is how we're going to do, and I'm going to have to learn to work around that to continue servicing to my current standards. As I tear this down, you'll notice that the movements, there aren't very many scratches on it, and it's not very dirty. There's some hairs here and there. There's some grease here and there, like on the pallet stones, you'll find that there's lines where it's been greased before. Now, like I said, all this leads me to believe that this watch was worn till it, maybe even kept time decent, and somebody threw it in a drawer, or they just didn't like it when they bought it new. I mean, it does have a funky bezel on it, but a lot of these stones are clean, and really, there's not a lot of gunk built up anywhere. Not like other watches I've worked on in the past. Here you'll see there's a little piece of hair there, and just like a slight line of grease on the pallet stone there. I've really started to try and use correct screwdriver sizes and also sharpness when it comes to these screws so I don't scratch them. I really mind like how I start the screw process. I've also started using these fully brass tweezers, and these help from scratching the steel parts, the bridges and everything. They're a lot softer metal. I do have to dress them more frequently, but these are a good quality Dumont brand, so they're good to go. Here you'll see some of my inspection. Now I do a pre and post cleaning inspection, and then I also do a pre-assembly inspection. What I'm looking for is really any signs of damage, bent, distorted teeth, pinched teeth, out of flat, out of round, worn pivots, bent pivots, broke pivots. You're just really just inspecting it for anything you could possibly see that's wrong with the wheel, and all of the parts really, for that matter. Now, after you assemble, after everything's clean, but before you lubricate, I like to go through, and you probably should, check in shake, side shake, backlash, how everything's meshing, and if everything's free. That way you can find problems before there's lubricants in there, and you can get them fixed without having to re-clean everything. One thing I noticed here is that this center wheel was only jeweled on one side. The other side doesn't have a jewel in its bridge. Um, there's also another unique little thing, and you probably didn't catch it here, but when I put it back together, I put emphasis on it. There is a metal washer that goes between the two center wheels. That I've never seen before. Here I'm inspecting the jewels. I'm trying to see how much pre-cleaning I need to do before I actually put this through the cleaning machine. Those solutions are a lot more expensive than like an IPA, isopropyl alcohol, and then you can just brush a lot of these parts before you put them through your cleaning machine. Um, I do that a little bit on this one, but not a lot because it's really not that dirty. I'm also inspecting to make sure there aren't any cracks or like worn spots in the jewels, or make sure they're flat. There's a lot of things that can be wrong that can cause issues, and typically I don't expect any, other than the fact that I remembered there was an issue with the escapement. That little dot at the beginning of the video where the trace lines weren't even. We'll check into that later and see if we can find anything. Here you'll start to see the dial side unique design things I was talking about. And this setting lever and hold down spring, it's all one piece. And typically you'll see multiple pieces, a bridge, multiple springs. This is all one piece. It actually seems to work pretty well. It's hard to assemble, but it works better than, like, let's say the ETA 2824, which is the bane of my existence. That setting lever system in that sucks. Alright, so we're getting all of the parts we've taken out so far organized. We're going to get a picture of that on our phone. That way we can know in case anything comes out of the baskets or whatever. And I'll compare the pictures before and after. While all the parts are in the cleaning machine, I'll go through with like an alcohol and a rag, and I'll wipe down the working surface here, this green mat, and the parts tray there, just to give me the parts the best chance possible to stay clean after they come out of the cleaning machine. And that's just like a quality control thing I've started doing. Okay, I'm getting the spring out of this barrel, and I still do this by hand just because the winders, well, you got to take them out by hand, I guess, but put them back in even by hand because the winders are just expensive and the cheap ones don't work very well. One final check just to make sure I don't need to do any pre-cleaning before I get in here. You'll notice that fluid level's low. I end up adding some fluid to that to keep that well. So here we go. We're starting the assembly now. And this process here I'm doing is just adding 8200 to the spring through my fingertips. And then you'll also want to put 8200 on the surfaces of the inside contact spots of the barrel. Not on the outer edge, just where the vertical parts of the spring touch. And that'll be on the cap and the barrel. You'll want to add HP 1300 to the pivots of the barrel arbor where it goes into the barrel on both sides, and just a little bit goes a long way. Another thing I've been working on, using proper oiling, and you'll see in this video lots of new oils that I've not used in the past, as well as me maybe using less and then adding more later, because you can always add more. So we're going to go ahead and get this barrel assembled, and to do that we're just going to press it down with this tool, and we're going to go ahead and put it back into the tray. Notice the tray is nice and clean. So here we're going to do our pre-assembly inspection just to make sure everything is good to go. There are multiple ways to lubricate this next part that's coming up, and the way I like to do it is to lubricate this bottom side first, the dial side, on the wheel, and then put it into the movement. And I don't know why, that's just how I always do it. And I'll oil the back side when I start assembling that part also, but I always oil that first. No rhyme or reason really. So here I'm trying to figure out how this bridge goes on there, and like I said, this one is jeweled on one side and not the other. And that's pretty interesting. I can imagine that would I mean, that's got to cause issues, right, with dial up versus dial down. I would think that it would have more friction on one side. Like I said, that I don't know if I told you, that was HP 1300 going on that center wheel. And you'll check and make sure it rotates before you tighten the screw down. I like to hit it with some air, and then I'll tension the screw the rest of the way. This is also HP 1300. I had too much on my oiler there, so I went back to clean it, and now I have very little, but like I said, you can always put more in. It's a lot harder to take it back out. I really, have been enjoying working on these. This is the third vintage skin diver I've worked on, and I figured I'd make a video on this one. Now I have another one coming. I have a Sheffield, but I have bought a reissued Sheffield, and I bought it used, but it's like almost one-to-one identical to the vintage piece, except for it's got a screw down crown. But I mean, it has the aluminum bezel. It's got the coffin shape indices. It's the same size. Very, very cool. I bring that up because you might wonder which watch I'm wearing in this video, and that's the watch I have on during part of the service. I think some of it I didn't have a watch on, and the other parts I did. Here's that other second pinion center wheel, and here's that little metal washer I was telling you about earlier. When I first found this, I had no idea. I'm like, where that had to have come out of this watch. Luckily, I had pictures on my phone of the disassembly and figured out that it goes right here. I'm going to add some HP 1300 here to this base of this wheel, and we're going to drop this thing down in there. Once we get this fitted, we'll test to make sure it moves, and then we'll be on to the escape wheel. Now this escape wheel here, we're just checking to make sure there's no damage that we missed, make sure it's all clean and ready to go. Once we get that set down in there, we will start to put the train wheel bridge on. The escape wheel is always the most difficult one. At least in my experience, it's always the most difficult wheel to get into its pivots. It doesn't ever want to sit straight. I don't know why, but we get it pretty quickly in this, and I've got a little trick I'll show you here. And once you get this set straight up and you can put the bridge on there, you'll have to wiggle the wheels a little bit to get the pivots aligned, and keep an eye on the holes here where the screws align, because those are going to be your main focus for aligning the bridge itself. And then the pivots will have to be aligned once those are. So little light taps on the top of the bridge will get the center and fourth wheel to line up, and third, I guess. So here's the trick. You can get a really clean oiler and you can get it in there. If you can view through the pivot hole with a microscope, you can move that escape wheel pivot into its position, and then just a light bit of pressure and some spinning, and it'll fall right into place. So I'm putting pressure in the wrong spot here, but once I move, you'll see. Okay, so there we go. We fell into place and it's moving. We are ready to put the screws in, and you're going to want to hold pressure on this bridge just enough to keep the pivots from jumping out while you put the screws in there. If those jump out and you tighten it too much, it will break. Also, you'll have to realign the pivots if they don't break. But I will not tighten these all the way. I'll just get them started, and then I'll check and make sure that the wheels will still move freely, and then I'll go through and I'll do a finishing tightening. So here I'm checking with air to make sure the wheels are good to go, and I'll go through and do a retighten. Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and get the barrel in, and this continues through the whole thing. So we're gonna check and make sure the wheels move as I assemble. That way, if any issues pop up while we're assembling, we know where they start. Most of the time on movements, this is the setting lever screw, and it has to be put in on this side. But on this one, you put it in through the dial side. Another unique design. I wouldn't say super unique to to this watch because I have seen that before. It is rather common. Okay, so we're getting this assembled. Everything's looking good so far. We're gonna go ahead and hold a little bit of pressure on this. Same deal, you know, you don't want it popping out while you put the screws in. It's just good practice here. Like I said, we're gonna start the screws, not tighten them. We're gonna check rotation, and then we'll do a final tighten after we check rotation on each part. So everything's moving, looks really good. Final tension. Here you're gonna see me put HP 1300, and this is lubricating the spot between the arbor and the bridge. Earlier you saw me lubricate the spot between the arbor and the barrel. So that is a little bit too much play, but not enough that I'm concerned. Okay, so maybe in the future this watch can have a jewel upgrade or some kind of bushing put in there, or you know, a staking set can fix that. Here we're gonna put this click and click spring in, and you know, this design is pretty decent, I think. This watch doesn't have a lot of wear all over the place, so it's hard to tell how this will hold up in the future, but for now it looks good. Now there is a little bit of wear underneath the ratchet wheel that you may have seen earlier, and I believe that's coming from this. It is what it is. I mean, that's how it's designed, so that's how it's going back together. So as we begin to put the ratchet wheel in, we're going to hold the click back so we can get tension on this screw and not just try and wind it through the train. And once we have that, we'll give the train a little bit, and you'll notice those wheels are kicking back. So when they rotate all the way around, they are reversing at the end. And that's a good indication that it's moving very, very freely. Here's the crown wheel going in, and that's HP 1300 on it as well. The lines on this screw indicate that it is a reverse thread, means you tension it by spinning it to the left. Those break if you spin them the wrong way. I broke one when I was first starting out, but ever since then I've known that the majority of these, if it's a single screw, because of the direction that it spins when you wind it, they have reversing thread. Here I'm cleaning the hair and stuff off the pallet fork. I've since this really started just sending these through the cleaning machine. What I'm looking for is the stones to have a shine on them and no dirt at all. And basically dipping it in one dip, dipping the Q-tip in one dip, scrubbing it. We'll get to that. So you can see how it's dirty there and see how that one's shining. Now what we're looking for is a even flat shine across both teeth, jewels I guess, and then yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. But like I said, I've started sending those through the cleaning machine as well as the balance, just because one dip's kind of expensive. It gets contaminated and doesn't work as well all the time. So we'll start with the one dip and then end up sending it through the cleaning machine, and it works pretty good. There will be no oil on the pivot holes here, but we will use something called 9415 on the pallet stones. Now I've been reading on this, and they say that 9415 doesn't have to have epilam treatment. I've been starting to use epilam. I don't know what. I'd like to know your opinions. If you use 9010 or some other oil on your stones, you probably should use epilam. But if you're using a grease like 9415, do you still use epilam treatment on the escape wheel and the stones of the pallet fork? Now I know that you don't want it on here, the forks of the pallet fork, because it'll create a I believe it was a powder substance on the impulse jewel, and that'll create drag and resistance. But I don't know. I've not really got into that so much with the epilam, but I am working on getting towards that. So we put some power in this watch, and everything seems to be clicking over really well. So here we go. We're going to add this 9415 I've been talking about. And basically what you want to do is add the most minuscule amount you can to one of the teeth on the escape wheel. and then you'll rotate it twice, and then you'll keep doing that on the exit side until you have evenly distributed the microscopic amount across all the teeth. And all that really does, I believe, is help with amplitude. You lose the most amplitude issues here in the escapement, and that will help your service intervals. I continue to do this, and it really takes like 10 times, and if you mess it up, you pretty much gotta take it apart and clean it. I've been pretty lucky by just having the tiniest amount of oil or grease that I can on the smallest oiler I have to apply this, and that has really increased amplitude results for my servicing. And there is a system, there is a best practice for this, and you have to get really close and like judge the triangle. There's a video from a guy here on YouTube I was watching about it, and really there's a correct application, but if you have some on there, as long as it's not too much, it's going to be a lot better than none at all. You can develop that skill set and practice as you go. And here I'm distributing it. So I've applied it to the teeth. I'm done applying now, and I'm just rotating through the escapement so it will apply it evenly across all, and then we're going to install the balance and see what happens. Here's the best way I've found to install a balance. So you get the pallet fork set towards the escape side, and then you rotate it into it. Instead of like trying to fight the spring and everything, you just rotate it into there. This works every time. It drops in there and kicks right up. Just like that, give it a little bit of shake, it's good to go. If you're having issues where you can't get your phase correct with your impulse jewel, try that out and see how that works for you. Just because of the amplitude and the look of the way the balance is, I know I can go ahead and tighten the screw all the way down. I'm still going to go slowly in case it stops, but as long as the balance doesn't stop while I'm tensioning this screw, we are good to tighten it down. Alright, so let's go ahead and get some oil here. Now, I'm missing some footage of oiling this, but I promise it all got done. So basically, you're going to want to do the third and fourth wheel and the escape wheel dial side. And what I do is I'll do all the 1300s and all the 9010s at once. So I'll go HV 1300 on the movement and dial side, and then I'll clean my oiler and I'll do the 9010. And again, I'll say the pallet fork pivots do not get oil. This is the stone from the jewel setting, the Duo Fix. That is a drop of dried oil in the center there. We're going to dip that into one dip, get it nice and cleaned up. We're looking for the same flat, clean shine. This is 90-10, and you want like 50-60% coverage. Perfect circle would be perfect. Now when you drop this into here, you need to be aware that you can't disturb that oil drop. So after you get it in there, you need to check and make sure that oil drop is still circle and unbroken. And if you do disturb it, you'll see a difference here. And that is still got a ring, so it's good to go. The shock setting here, these are a little bit difficult, but once you do a few of them, you'll get used to them, and they're not horrible. I still prefer them to not be there, although they are cool. They make a nice looking movement. So what you want to do is just slide it back in, and then it's got a spring tension, and that little lever on the back will tension down into it. Next up, the balance jewel shock protection. This is how you take these out. You just rotate them, and then you can lift one edge up above the setting, and then continue to rotate until the second one can come out, and then you're out. And then you just reverse that to put it back in, which I'll show you here later after we get this one cleaned up. And this is also going to go take a one dip bath, and we're looking for the same thing. We're looking for a shine, even flat shine, no debris, no dirt. And then instead of setting the jewel into the setting, we're going to have to set the setting, well, the setting onto the jewel. I think that's what that's called, is the setting. Same thing goes, 90-10, 50% coverage, and you don't want to disturb the drop. And if you do disturb the drop, you have to re-clean. You have to restart. So yeah, it's a big hassle. For some reason, this is harder to record whenever you do it. If you don't record when you're doing this, you can do it first try. But so this is actually the second try here, and you just set it down on there, and it should be good. These like to fling across the room too. These are one of the easiest parts to lose besides the springs, and just be aware of that too. So see that drop, the circle, the undisturbed ring, pretty good. That one is great. Very happy with that. We'll set this shock setting back down in here, and this is how you install. Set the bottom, rotate it until you get the second one started, and then you'll just rotate it, and then you'll get that very last lever set, spring loaded into there. If this stops the balance, there is a possibility that the shock protection is upside down. We're going to be doing the same thing on this side. I won't make you watch. We're just going to go ahead and install the spring. One thing you probably haven't noticed yet is that the hairspring is not flat. I don't have a lot of footage of me working on this, but I ended up basically being able to straighten it out and get it flat, and the watch turns out really good. And at the end of the video, I have time grapher results, and you'll see. I take it off of here and I show you where the issue is at and where I think the problem was coming from. But we got it flat and straightened out, and the regulator is good. It's between the pins and everything like it should be. I'm very happy with how the spring turned out after messing with it. It should be good to go now. I'm not really sure how that happened. I don't know if I did it while I was cleaning or if it was already bent. I just didn't notice it. But yeah, hairspring work. That's a lot of fun. There you can see where the beginning of the terminal curve is at. There's an issue there that's causing maybe some unevenness plus whatever, but this is after it was adjusted and it's good to go. This right here is moly coat, and you want the tiniest amount. This stuff spreads, so the tiniest amount is enough. And I've switched to this over 1300 just because I feel like it spreads less than 1300, and I feel like it lubricates better. I mean, I don't know, what are your guys' opinions? What do you guys use? Like I said, that is just barely, and not even a drop. I mean, I put a drop on there and then I clean it up and leave like the residue to lubricate. I started using that on some of my calendar watches I was working on, and I had really good results. This is gonna be 9501 going here for the setting lever detent, I guess is what you'd call it. The blue grease there, that's 9501. And like I said, just a tiny little bit there for that as well. You could probably get away with using 9501 on all of these metal on metal pieces, including the wheels. As I go through and finish up this setting and keyless works area, well, I make a few mistakes, so you'll be interested to watch that. But I want to talk about the channel here, and you know, I haven't made a video in a while, but I plan to continue pushing them out. I slowed down because it started becoming a labor, and I say that not because the watches really. It's always been about the watches. You know, I'm very passionate about watchmaking, but the video editing takes almost as much time as the service, so that's why I've slowed down, and I'm back into it now. So you could probably expect to see some videos coming out. I've got lots of projects lined up, stuff I want to work on. I've got stuff I have to work on that I haven't made a video on, so I have to finish those. I guess I could make partial videos on them. The room itself is updated. There's a lot of changes in here since the last time I've shown anybody. I've got a lot more equipment and a lot more tools, and just I've got cabinets and storage space and tables, and a lot's changed. I may do like a bench tour sometime soon, and more like a watch room tour or whatever. Picked up some more books and everything, you know. This is a very unique design here on this setting lever spring, detent spring. I put a little bit of lubricant on this screw here just because that lower piece for the setting lever, I believe that rotates a little bit with spring tension. So I just didn't want it to wear. You know, it's thin plate, so it should be good. I don't think that's going to hurt anything being there if it doesn't need it. So I did look for a service or repair manual for this movement, the Seikos that I knew of. I didn't find anything. So, I mean, I'm really just going off gut feeling on where I think oils should be based on other stuff I've worked on. It's really hard to say. You know, it'll probably be good, and I tell you what, it is good because it runs great, and it is still running great, and it's been over a week since I serviced it. Once we get this done, next up is the plate, and this plate bridge from the dial side holds the intermediate wheel and the minute wheel. And the minute wheel is what drives the cannon pinion, and that's what the minute hand sits on. And it spins while you're setting the time, you know, like when you pull it out. Otherwise, it doesn't do anything. We're going to put that on, and then we're going to test function, and we're going to see what's up. You may already be able to tell what the issue is, but I'm going to let you figure that out. I'm going to show you later. Okay, so this is where the cannon pinion goes on to, and this is moly coat, and you have to lubricate your cannon pinions because they're friction fit and they will friction wear. I use moly coat because, you know, I couldn't find any standard booklet on this, and I've used it before and it seems to work pretty good. You want to make sure your teeth are aligned. Make sure your teeth are aligned, and if your teeth aren't aligned, you need to align your teeth, okay? I'm saying that multiple times because, you know, some of you know. Hey, so we're going to use moly coat here too, and this is the tiniest little bit. I'm also checking to make sure the alignment of the teeth is good there. And this is the hour wheel here that sits on top of the cannon pinion. Both of these driven by the minute wheel. Here's the teeth alignment issue if you didn't know what I was talking about earlier. And here it is fixed. And right here is what I'm talking about. And it stopped the movement when I had it together. So, hey, we're going to test function. Okay, time setting works. Winding works. Good to go. Here is the uncased time grapher. Pretty decent results here. Let's go ahead and get the dial and hands on. So this is a time only watch, so you can put the hour hand on anywhere you want. I am going to line it up with one of these indices, and I'm doing that specifically for hand alignment because, well, I guess probably could have got away with putting it at the 12 because of the minute hand or whatever, but I know for a fact this is 100% lined up with the hour marker perfect if I line it up with the indice, and then all I have to do is line up the minute hand with the 12 and then test function. You want to check and make sure they aren't touching each other. You really want them to not be touching the dial because it will rub a wear mark in the dial fast. You've probably seen dials with rings on them. That's from the hands touching the dial. Putting the last hand on there, the second hand, we're going to check and make sure it's not rubbing either. That will stop the watch quickly. And the back looks good, and yes, the front looks pretty good too. We're going to go ahead and make sure that it goes through there. And it all looks good, so let's go ahead and get this watch cased up. We're going to blow air across the dial, get any debris off there. This is the split stem. It goes in there like that. So you just push it, find where it lines up, and it'll pop into place. Not the best method, but it works. There is a better way to do that, and I've shown you that in a previous video. So we've got it all cased up, and here's the initial results after it was cased right away. And after it set for about a day or two, we had better results. This is what it's currently at, and I actually think the amplitude's risen more now than it was. And this thing turned out great. This watch is really, really nice. If you like this video, I mean, stick around, we're going to have another.